This is the review of the orderIT system for December the 2nd, 2020. We've had 9 trades, 4 buys, and 5 sells. Start by review. First trade is EARS. Actually, that's not the first trade because it was not ordered by time. First trade actually is BND. Vanguard Total Bond Market Index. It tripped at 11:10 a.m. at a price of 87.88. It was a short sell. It did close at 87.93, so it closed above. It did show that it was down 0.17% over the previous close. So we'll check to see if there's any time during the day it was down below that. 11:15. So right around here, 87.89, 87.89, 87.87. It's strange because this period here, it's actually moving quite sideways but not down, but you can see here, look, it was down 87.82. So there's a good about 15 minutes here, so I consider it a buy, even though it's a very careful activity you would have had to go through to get out. But there was a point in time where you could have gotten out because it did drop below its indication price. It was moving sideways, this stock, so it looks like it entered the morning time, closed a little bit downwards, and basically moved sideways. OBV though is showing that it moved down the whole day. MACD down in the morning, sideways, recovered actually in the early afternoon, and bouncing back and forth, but technically moving downwards in the afternoon, but again bouncing back and forward. So almost 50% half. It looks like it was showing as a downward trend or selling opportunity. DI is actually showing more. It's showing more negative than positive, so it actually was a buy, a sell from DI's perspective. Bollinger Bands just show it was moving down. Just show that it was moving down. It just happened to be that we caught it just right at its end point in the morning, or early afternoon, and then it recovered, and then came down again. So this stock was moving down, so it would have been a positive trade when you caught it at its drop point. Next trade is CCI, Crown Castle International. It tripped at 11:27 a.m. at a price of 168.16. It was a short sell. It closed at 166.84, down 2.32%. That actually is a buy because it closed below its tripping. Actually, I was looking at the wrong page. This happened to be the stock that I looked at was moving downwards too. Okay, this is the first trade, moving downwards a little bit. This one will check to show recovery at the end of the day. And Bollinger Band actually showed that drop, so not as strongly as what I indicated because I was looking at the wrong graph, but still the end result is it would have been a positive trade because it dipped below. Okay, so this is the trade for CCI. And OBV actually showing it pretty much moving down for most of the day, making a recovery at the end of the day. MACD showing down morning and actually making a recovery in the late morning, early afternoon, and then dropping again in the afternoon. DI across the board, it was moving downwards. You can see this little bit of peak that it occurred that actually was moving it upwards again. You'll see end of the day moving upwards. Bollinger Bands though just showing it was moving down across the board. So the end result is this would have been a positive trade. Next trade is JD. That's JD.com Incorporated. It tripped at 1:01 p.m. at a price of 83.43. It was a short sell. It closed at 84.38. It was down 1.15%, so it actually closed above it. Let's see if there's any point that it was down below 12. So around this point, 83.26, 83.09, dropping. So a good, at least almost a good hour that it was below its triplet price, so I consider that a positive trade. Again, a trade that would have had to been monitored because you would have to catch it, because you could see it was making a recovery at the end of the day or the afternoon period. It was making a recovery. OBV showing the same thing, down in the morning, up in the afternoon. MACD showing the same thing, down in the morning, up in the afternoon. DI showing the same thing, down in the morning, early afternoon, up in the afternoon. Bollinger Band, same thing, down and then up. So it was doing what it's doing, but you could have made a profit when it came down to its low point. Next trade is INO. That's Inovio Pharmaceuticals. It tripped at 1:25:36 p.m. It tripped at a price of 12.03. It was a buy trade, and it closed at 11.97, and it actually was down 3.62. So this was a trade that was tripped on a upwards activity on a downward trend day at 125. So actually, look, it tripped right around here. 12.06, 12.03, 12. It's not a big period, but there's a good almost half an hour of time here where it was above its indication price. I consider that a positive, even though the majority of time after its indication price it was actually below it, but you would have had to follow this very carefully, catch it on its upwards trend. OBV up back and forth, but showing somewhat back and forth. It was showing somewhat sideways a little bit, but back and forth. Afternoon, though, you could see it was recovering from a drop. MACD showing the same thing. It's showing recovery at the end of the day. It was up in the morning time. In the afternoon, it was somewhat down. Early afternoon, it was somewhat down. DI showing about half and half, but as you can see by the end of the day, it was making recovery. Bollinger Bands can show you that it was actually moving up in the morning time, and in the afternoon, that's when it came down and then made a recovery at the end of the day. So this technically is a very good possible trade if it did trip above, because of the fact that it was moving fairly positive at the end of the day. Next trade is MIK, the Micros companies. It's tripped at 2:22 p.m. at a price of 10.19. It was tripped as a short sell, and it closed at 10.25, and it actually was up 0.34%. So we can see that 2:15. So it tripped right around this area, but look, it came down 10.13 and recovered. Again, let's say a good half an hour time that it actually dropped below its indication price. I consider it another positive trade, but very tricky, because you can see the stock was moving sideways, and it actually was a stock that was up. So you would have caught this just on its daily activity and point to where it was moving down a little bit. The indications are showing OBV showing somewhat OBV somewhat sideways, and after it was recovering. MACD actually was showing that it was dropping late morning, early afternoon, and then making a recovery. But again, bouncing back and forth even in the afternoon for MACD wise. So MACD showing strong negative in the morning. DI also showing strong negative in the morning, early afternoon, and then making a recovery. Bollinger Bands down. This is where you caught it. So it was moving down to make a little bit of recovery. So a very tricky trade, but it did drop below its trade point. So I'll consider it a positive, even though it was a very short time frame that you had. but still positive. Next trade is EDIT. It tripped at 235.29 at a price of 31.30. It was indicated as a buy. It closed at 31.56. It was actually down 1.07%, but it did close above its tripping price, so that's another positive trade. As you can see, OBV morning moving sideways, but afternoon it shot up. MACD showing the same thing. It was actually down in the morning a little bit and then shot up for most of the day. DI is actually a little differently. It's actually showing it was very, very much negative in the morning to early afternoon. You can see a little bit of spike here, but it's again right afterwards it came down. That's where they're showing negative. So DI is actually showing probably a little bit more negative than positive, but as you can see, the end of the day it was showing that it was making a recovery. Bollinger Band showed the same thing. It was coming down a little bit. It was actually moving sideways in the afternoon, so the negative downward trends weren't heavily affecting the price, and at the end of the day it was making a recovery, so that stock is positive. Next trade is EARS. Oris Medical Holdings. It tripped at 310.15 at a price of 353. It was a buy trade. It closed the day at 350. It was down 33%. So this is very interesting. And as you can see, it was moving sideways, and it obviously dropped below its entry point. This could possibly be an indication of activity for evaluation. Could maybe take something like this into consideration, that if it dropped too much over the previous close, that it would not indicate a reverse operation. As you can see, 310. So you can see down around this point it was coming up again. And look, look at that. I can say, look, it's down, but right at the point at where it tripped, it actually moved above. It actually was above for almost an hour. It was above, and then dropped below again, and then dropped down. So this period of time where it was recovering in late afternoon, it actually recovered above it. So that looked like it would have been a negative, or well, I could say, if anything, it looked like it would have been a possible trade, just because the fact that the stock price itself was showing that it was moving sideways. There was a period right after the tripping price where it came above, so it was recovering. Excuse me. OBV showing that there was 2 points where it was shooting up, and you can see end of the day it was actually moving upwards. MACD, look, MACD early morning it was up, moving a little bit sideways in the afternoon, and in late afternoon, look, moving up, and then end of the day it was curved. This is where we caught it. We caught it on this spike here, and this point here where it was above its tripping price. Like, this is where it tripped, and it was just coming up for, you know, a good hour during that period of time where it tripped. Well, it did trip, but where it was moving up on the indicator. DI. Bouncing a little bit back and forth in the morning, early afternoon. This is where it made that recovery and then reversed. Bollinger Band, just not enough expansion on the Y chart or Y scale to see the change, but right around here it was moving up. Surprisingly enough, the stock was heavily down, but I stated originally that this should be maybe an indication to determine, you know, if this should be bought, because it dropped so heavily, and you can see early morning it even dropped even more. There was a point during its trading activity where it traded above its tripping price. So technically this was a positive trade. So, you know, that's an interesting trade, and the order system is designed to indicate strong movement in a specific direction, regardless of the actual price point, which you can see with that one there. It was down 33% over previous close, and it was actually down early morning. So that stock was showing that it looked like it was moving down, but the indicators and the price itself was showing that it actually was not moving very heavily in a negative direction, and there was a point where it was positive above its tripping price. So very, very interesting stock. Next trade is CLNE, Clean Energy Fuels. It tripped at 341.18 at a price of 426. It was a short sell. It closed at 423, down 386, so that's another positive trade. Check the indicators. I think we're at the end of the indicator graphs for this page, yes. And we'll check to see what the analysis is looking. OBV showing that this stock was moving down. MACD down in the morning, moving sideways in the early afternoon, actually making a recovery, which was this point here, making a recovery early afternoon, and somewhat moving downwards, but you can see it was bouncing back and forth between down and positive movement, even though in general the direction for MACD is moving downwards. DI down, down, down. DI showing that it was down for the majority of the day. Bollinger Bands, look, it's just showing that the stock was going down, so again a positive trade just because of the fact that overall that stock was just moving down. Next trade is BCRX, Crest Pharmaceuticals. It tripped at 345.22, tripped right at the end of the day at a price of 510, and it was a buy trade. It closed at 504. So below its tripping price, but it was up for the day, 3.49%, so it was actually up a good amount. And look, as you can see, 344. Yeah. It actually came up and then dropped. So right at the tripping point, it moved a cent above, but again, it was a very short period of time. I don't know how long it was up for that period of time, but it was an extension. But as you can see, it was up for the day. It somewhat was moving very strongly positive and sideways. I'll consider it a good possible, but I won't indicate it as a buy activity or as a positive activity, just because the fact is it's no strong movement after a trip. It tripped at the end of the day, so you would have had a very short period of time to recover from the stock or make a positive trade on that stock. OBV showing it somewhat moving upwards. A little bit of a drop here in the mid-afternoon. MACD showing the same thing, even though it's morning or the late morning, early afternoon, showing it somewhat back and forth. So, and yeah, early afternoon is just dropping and making a recovery. So, interestingly enough, DI though is showing very, very strong positive movement, and then you can see this point where making negative, but again looked like it was recovering a bit. And Bollinger Bands showing the same thing. It basically was increasing until this point and then moving sideways, just dropping a little bit at the end of the day. So I would say this is a good stock. It would have been a very, very good possible, and most likely you'd have a close on the day after. So I consider that a very good trade. So overall, we have 9 trades, 8 of them positive, so I'll say calculation-wise 8 divided by 9, and I didn't type it correctly. 8 divided by 9, there we go, 88.8% trade. That's pretty good. Overall, the majority of stock you could have made a positive trade on. So again, a very, very good day. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.